Today we're checking out F1 World on F1 23 for the very first time, and with it, the Qatar Grand Prix.
Welcome to F1 World, a journey through the sport that'll offer you events based around casual or competitive play, single player or multiplayer, fun versus realism, and everything in between. As you play, you'll earn upgrades that can be equipped to your car and team in the garage, increasing your tech level and giving you the performance you need to tackle greater challenges. Along the way, you'll build up your compendium, find new ways to customize your car and character, earn trophies for your trophy cabinet, and more. So when you're ready, jump into the play screen and take your first steps into F1 World.
So in the new game, we've got this all-new mode with brand new upgrading systems for the wings. We've got the engine, the gearbox, brakes, and even all the way to sponsors and team members like principals, R&D, and strategists.
This is your garage. As you play F1 World, you'll earn upgrades, which can be equipped here to improve your tech level. Upgrades are split into car parts and team members. Team members require a contract in order to be equipped. As well as improving your tech level, upgrades also confer gameplay mods that change how your car and team perform on track. Okay, new items you've acquired appear here. So we've got some, so let's go and open them and see what you got.
So every lap you turn in F1 World is going to earn you some attributes that you can maybe put towards a brand new part, or you can just earn them outright, as well as things like sponsorships and also new team members as well, along with the car.
When you're equipping a new team member, you need to provide them with a contract. Each contract bestows a bonus mod upon that team member and lasts for a fixed number of events. When that contract expires, all of that team member's mods will be disabled until you give them a new contract. Note that if you replace a team member or their contract, their current contract is destroyed, no matter how many events were left on it.
So as you add in all these things, the sponsors, the new team members, the new car upgrades, your overall car performance out on track is going to increase. And as that increases, you unlock further races that are harder difficulty, and you can see that by the tech level you're at. Everything's based off the tech level. So your tech level kind of gives you the difficulty of the race. It's kind of very similar to other racing games where you need to be a certain level of XP or credit system, let's say, to get to certain races. So it's like an unlocking system of each time you put, as it says on screen right now, equip upgrades, your tech level goes up. So you're trying to aim for from 100 is the base level all the way up to 1000 tech level is like the maxed out best car you can make and have in F1 World. And whilst we're at it, of course, usual customization, not just with the actual performance but aesthetics as well. So I wanted to show you guys as well what's available. I assume these are essentially the starting liveries at the beginning of the game. And then obviously, as usual, you'll unlock stuff with the podium pass. It is unfortunate that, now several years on from when we first got a customizable generic car, there's no sort of livery editor. I don't know really if that is ever going to come. It's a little bit disappointing, I can't lie. But yeah, take a look at the starting liveries. Of course, probably more will be available as you progress through the first series of the podium pass, as we've kind of become accustomed to in the last couple of F1 games. But now let's delve into actually doing some racing in F1 World, where we'll get introduced to the different leveling systems and the kind of gameplay mechanics.
So this is what we call the activity screen. It's basically your jumping off point for all the different ways you can play F1 World. Okay, so feel free to explore, have a good look around, and when you are ready to get your journey going, just select Series from the list and we'll go from there.
So the first mode here is Series, and as Mark will explain in a moment, that's kind of your main starting point for getting upgrades, improving your tech level before unlocking and doing further races, even in multiplayer, let's say.
Welcome to the Series screen. Each series of events has objectives that can award you items such as upgrades and resources that can be used to improve your tech level. Completing a series can unlock further series, exploring more and more of the world of Formula 1.
So there's a starter series to kick you off in F1 World, and then that unlocks basically the rest of the mode, where there's going to be multiple different events, even things like scenario mode, where there might be an instance where you're a certain F1 driver, you have to make a decision to pit or not pit for fresh tires, these kind of different scenarios, kind of almost like F1 2012 Champions mode back in the day. But first things first, quick little race here around Austria. Just wanted to show you this gameplay just to show off that brand new Austria layout. They've added in that MotoGP section, but just changes the dynamic of how Austria looks. But very much almost like kind of like Gran Turismo 7, where you have to play a couple of starting races to unlock further kind of more challenging things or more interesting kind of scenarios and races. This first series is just about getting to grips with how the mode works, with getting these upgrades at the end of races, getting through and completing objectives, racing clean. It also gives you more attributes, and by the end of that first series, you've got, well, first of all, a little trophy of unlocking the first series, but then you unlock all these other areas of F1 World, and you've got things like Australia Mastery, Europe 1 Series, all these different classes of kind of ways to play the game, all with varying difficulties of tech level, which you can see denoted on the left-hand side. But now we're going to get on to a race at the Qatar GP, and on purpose, I've made the tech level higher than my actual tech level, just to show you in terms of like the challenge there of having AI with basically better cars, because that's what the tech level is. And so you can go up against higher ones to gain higher rewards if you feel like you can beat them.
Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to our latest F1 World event. So many stories up and down the grid, but there can only be one winner. We're back here in Losail for a track that's 3.34 miles long. There are 16 turns around its unique three-pronged shape and just a single DRS zone out of turn 16. It's fast and it's flowing, and there's a good overtaking opportunity with DRS down the long straight and into turn 1. And as we go through the lineup, many of these drivers are racing here for the first time, racing in the heart of the desert. Whatever happens tonight, it's going to be an unforgettable experience. Anthony Davidson is a big name in the world of Formula One. You've made a name for yourself, Ant, but what advice have you got for the drivers out there hoping to make a name for themselves?
It really depends which kind of character you are, Crofty. I think that my advice would be to anyone starting a season is that, yes, you want to perform well every single time you're in the car, but that's unlikely to happen. It's impossible. You're asking for the impossible.
So not only is this our first ever race versus some higher tech level AI cars, this is also our first race at the Qatar GPs. We go to 5 red lights and we're underway at a race we're going to later on this year in IRL F1, as we're going to try and find our way through. You can see the tech levels denoted on each of the names, and the ones in red, they're higher than what we're at. I think we're around, 105, 110 maybe at the best. So pretty much all the cars that we're going up against ahead of us are technically quicker in terms of the actual car itself, but we can have a go and try and see if we can make up the positions and make our way up. And you may have noticed in the cutscenes, for the intro to this race, there's actually now unique dialogue by Anthony Davidson, Crofty, about F1 World. They've actually got them to record stuff that references your progress in F1 World, so having a bit more dynamic audio with regards to that. And by the way, before you say it, if you notice me having quite a few mistakes here of oversteer, one, this was my very first time at Qatar on the official F1 game. I didn't bother to do any practice laps, so I'm kind of figuring out where the break points are. And also, I was doing this on a controller, and this is my first time on F1 23 with a controller and with no traction control on. Usually in the past, when I've done more casual videos with a controller on F1 22, for example, I usually run full traction or medium because it was just abysmal and I wasn't able to drive. But with this, there are a few little moments of oversteer, as you can clearly see there, but with no traction on a controller, first time trying Qatar as well, I was actually quite surprised how okay I was at it. So controller drivers out there, I think there's going to be more scope for you to start turning off assists and getting a handle and grips of driving the car even quicker without those assists, because of course you do go quicker without them on. As we now go down the inside very nicely and already on lap 2, maybe sussing out a little bit more these break points. Qatar, very challenging circuit, obviously, through and through. It's a MotoGP circuit. It looks it. It's very narrow. The corners coming at you thick and fast, and you can kind of very much see where the corners lean themselves to be more towards a motorcycle rather than an F1 car. And obviously you guys have actually seen me play around Qatar on the MotoGP games in the past, but very cool to actually finally now get to play it in the official F1 game. We were doing pretty well, actually, up to P5 versus cars that are about 30 tech level higher than us. And you may have noticed during this race that bottom left icon has been flashing green when we start a new lap and depleting, and eventually it will deactivate and go to flashing orange, which is the deactivating stage. Now, there's 4 slots for this in the heads-up display, and those are the active boosters for the F1 World car, coming from the upgrades you've made on the car parts or the team members. So those things like a bit of extra drag reduction, you know, every lap, you know, for a car upgrade you've got, that's how you're going to see it be activated and come into your race. So we make a good move into the final corner there, up into P4 as we get to grips with the circuit. At the same time, maybe getting a little bit overconfident in places, as you'll see later on in this lap, because I was building in confidence in the first sector as we now gain on P3 to try and get up into a podium on the inside. Just a little lift and then plant the power through the next right-hander. Then I just completely misjudged that corner, how tight it was. Missed the brake point here, so maybe getting a bit too overconfident from the first sector, making that overtake and still having to, you know, suss out fully and learn the brake points and the turn-ins for Qatar. But yeah, so that is an all-new mechanic in F1 World for F1 23. 4 different slots of upgrades and indicated by either grey, not active, green, it's activating, depleting, then as you can see the bar goes down, and then eventually to orange where it's deactivating. And technically it's been timed to a point where it's not a nuisance when it activates, so you'll never get a booster activating in the middle of the corner that will, you know, basically very randomly make your car go quicker mid-corner, not ideally where you want it to work. So it'll always activate in a place where it seems more appropriate. So for me, I can't exactly remember what booster I had. It may have been a drag reduction upgrade, and it's activating every time we start a new lap, and is why we're actually gaining a lot of speed on the straights after we've crossed the line with DRS, trying to go for a dive down the inside of P2 here. Now, these guys are tech level 154, so a good 40 level ahead of me. We're gaining, and we're, you know, having that confidence now in ourselves in Sector 1, or at least the first few corners, but then you're going to see my race unravels a little bit because I just get a bit too overconfident and start forgetting where I'm meant to be lifting off. This time, we just about make that right-hander, big lift off needed to make it, and then this corner was a nightmare for me. I remember on MotoGP as well, I always used to misjudge that corner because it feels so inviting but tightens up so quick. But and you know, this was on a controller. I can tell on a wheel when I finally get my hands and be able to play this circuit at home on my home setup. I think Qatar, it's going to be almost like Paul Ricard, I would say, in qualifying. I think it's going to be such a satisfying experience on the F1 game. But there, the AI tried to switch back, maybe just had enough on the exit to stay ahead in P2, and then trying to be, well, trying to go as quick as we can through these corners, but really just not having that memory of where on earth we're meant to be lifting, braking. I mean, this corner, I nailed that on the previous lap, and then this lap, it just really wasn't the same. So that #1 AI car pulling away from us, you know, if you're not absolutely on it, because they're in a higher tech level F1 World car, they will pull away. It's when you really put the corners together and you've got that speed in yourself, you're able to make the moves. And here, actually, I was very surprised. I got absolutely done by the man in now in P2. He was in P3 on the straight there with DRS. Didn't have too much ERS to play around with. And now, I think a bit of tyre wear also is kicking in for me. And it's a horrible mistake, the worst one we've made of the entire race, as we get some gravel on our tyres. So, very strangely, I've actually maybe got worse at Qatar as we go on through the lap. So, excuse the driving on a controller, not my main domain. And, you know, having to learn the circuit on a controller, very different situation. But I think this race kind of a good example of how the F1 World mechanics work. We've seen the boosters work on the heads-up display. You've seen the battling with AI cars with higher tech level. And like I said, you can on purpose go for races that have AI, that are higher tech level, in order to gain higher rewards. Because if you go out and beat them, your objectives in a race where you're on a lower tech level would not be to win the race. You know, just like if you're Williams on the F1 grid, you wouldn't be trying to go for the win. You're trying to go for, like, 1 point, and the objectives scale that way depending on what your tech level is. So, you know, the objective might be just get like a P7, but if you go above and beyond that, you can get rewarded more. So very much like, you know, I said before, Gran Turismo 7 is the kind of, you know, the crossover game I'm seeing where they have a system like that where you get rewarded more if you go for harder races, but you have to be to a certain level of degree, have a car that's quick enough, or, you know, the rating quick enough. So I'm seeing a lot of similarities now, actually, whilst commentating this, to Gran Turismo system of that kind of car class system. It's the same thing basically with the tech level, and they're basically trying to get you to play the F1 game a bit more with different variety races. Like I said, there are scenario modes, there are even like wackier ones where there's even a race where you're forced into cockpit cam or forced with no heads-up display, literally nothing on the screen. So there's going to be a variety of stuff that they hope is going to make you play the F1 game in different ways per se, week to week. And I think, you know, depending on some of the scenarios, I think there could be some really fun videos for myself to make out there and for you guys to enjoy just in terms of playing the F1 game. But that has been our first proper play and look at F1 World and showing the mechanics out on F1 23. Guys, if you have enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye.